Yo, what's up, it's Pikakid98 here, and today I'm going to be talking about one thing that I've wanted to do for a while, quite a while actually. I have plans for a Pikakid98 launcher. Now, what would a Pikakid98 launcher be? Well, essentially what I'm planning on doing is making an all-in-one launcher plus updater for my games, any potential applications, and also stuff in general, you know, like my green screen stuff and the stuff that I've archived for other people, and just like the stuff that I have on my GitHub. I'm potentially uploading everything else that's not on GitHub but is mine to GitHub and allowing people to download them. Having some kind of repository for batch files that the launcher downloads and then uses that to download the updates for if an update is needed. Now, some of you might be thinking a few things. One, do you even know how to program this launcher? And do you even know how to program the updater? Well, I'll answer the first one. Currently, I'm planning on using GameMaker Legacy 8.1, which seems like a weird decision, but yes, you can in fact embed files in. And what I was planning on doing was having a bunch of batch scripts that load maybe either the search util from Windows, but since that's quite slow, I was planning on then using HTTP downloader, but I was also planning on using silent CMD to just hide the CMDs, but for some reason that shows up a lot in malware circles, or it shows up a lot as malware because it's usually packed with malware, not the application itself, but the application itself is usually packed with malware. Like, here's a legitimate program, here's the malware, boom, like that, not the other way around. And secondly, do I know how to make the updater? Yes, I may not be very good at programming, but I can make the basics of the updater. When I say that, the most I can do is, again, have a GitHub specifically for launcher data. Unfortunately, the way I'm going about this at the moment is that I have to download the launcher data every single time you boot the launcher, just so it can download the batch scripts. And then the batch scripts have to check, is this particular version of this game or application installed? If so, launch it. If not, download it. Now, why would I use GameMaker? Why wouldn't I just use like something like .NET? Well, because I don't know how to use .NET. And I pretty much don't know how to use anything. Now, I could argue it's easy to make a launcher with just a simple batch script, but when it comes to making a game launcher, usually it's more than just a simple line of script. So yeah, I'd love to make a launcher. Yo, what's up, it's Pikakid98 here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Pikakid98 launcher is now available in early access. Prepare to be abandoned like last week's dinner. Yeah. So yeah, the Pikakid98 launcher that I said quite a while ago, it's available and there is a public version. Making this launcher was absolute hell because nothing would work, because I have an update data directory or a repository on GitHub where it grabs all the data. So then I was like, oh okay, I'll set them as the source code, set all the batch scripts that it downloads as the source code, so it downloads that. It wouldn't download them, it would just act like, wait a minute, there's nothing here, despite the fact that the directory is there, it exists, and the repository is fucking public, but it would still act like there was nothing there. So every single time I make even a slight change to a program or a game or whatever, I have to update a batch script. It's probably going to be very tedious when it comes to actually updating it, because it has to check every single time and then make it update, and then it update. It's just and on top of that, I also wanted to make an auto updater for the launcher itself, but for some reason I was using a batch script that I was compiling with iExpress, which is a built-in Windows tool, and for some reason most of the time when it would open, sure, it would work, quote unquote, sort of, but then all of a sudden it just stopped working. and refused to close on its own. I had to force close it, then I had to delete the cache files that it created, and then I opened it again, and it kept saying ix000.tmp is not a valid file format, or not is not a valid file format. It's like, what the fuck are you grabbing? So this is a really tedious launcher, but it sort of works. I even ended up staying up until like 3:30 a.m. just fixing some glitches, and then as I was testing it, I was just like, I don't want to fucking compile this shit again. It's so fucking tedious. It's like, oh, there's a major glitch here. Oh, this is happening. Well, not a major glitch, kind of a graphical glitch. It's tedious, okay? It's tedious. But it's out in early access. So anyway, I've been your host, Pikakid98. This has been Pikakid98 Chat, and you've all been fantastic. So until the next video, I say bye-bye. Yo, what's up, Pikakid98 here, and today I'm going to be talking about my launcher again. Alright, fine, let's do the title thing again. Talking about my Pikakid98 launcher again. Now, why am I talking about my launcher a second time? Well, because I wanted to mention a couple of things. For one, I finally got the updater working. Turns out it was a very simple fix. I think I know exactly what was happening. It was starting the program, which was in this case command prompt, in another window, but it was also starting it in another process. So it was immediately closing down the launcher. So in other words, the launcher file that actually needed to update the game, or the launcher, didn't actually exist because it kept deleting it. Now, why am I mentioning all of this? Well, because I'm planning on having a thing in the launcher updater when, if a beta branch of the launcher exists, you can either choose to stick to the stable version or use the beta version. Of course, it won't be recommended to use the beta version, it'll be more up to date, but there's a chance that it can ruin everything. Now, some things that I'm actually planning for this launcher are, for example, whenever you go to a repository page or whatever, like, you know, like on the menus, a little image will show telling you, hey, this is what the game should be, or this is the main character, or something like that. Then maybe the game's logo or the application's logo if applicable, and some text about the game, application, whatever. Because at the moment it's rather bare. There's pretty much nothing to it except for the names of the applications, the names of the repositories, and a play button. Now, some of you may also be wondering, what's with the arrow button? Now, whenever you click the arrow button in the launcher, it obviously just tells you, hey, this is a dead thing. What is this? Is this just for show? What I'm planning on doing is, that'll be for the application, game, whatever, dev branches, older versions. So it's like when you click it, it takes you to the releases page, or when you click one of them, it'll, instead of downloading the stable version, it'll download the version that's actually in development and set as a pre-release. And then the button that says play dev version changes to play stable version. Again, this may seem really tedious and difficult, but it's not really that tedious or difficult. It's just it might take a while to be implemented because, holy fuck, every single time I work on this launcher, it's so bloody late at night. For some reason, because I'm always so busy during the day doing nothing. But there's a chance that I'm usually editing or something, or making a video of some sort, and I just have no fucking time. It's just fucking tedious man! But yeah, so I just wanted to make a video to say, hey, the Pikakid98 launcher now has an updater, so you don't need to keep checking for updates. You just download the updater, and it should, I emphasize, it should automatically download the updates. Yo, what's up, it's Pikakid98 here, and today I'm going to be talking about my launcher again, but this time it's the actual updater. Why is the Pikakid98 launcher updater flagged as malware? Now, of course, some of you probably noticed that the updater itself, not the launcher, the updater itself, the PL updater.exe, every single time you try to run it, it gets flagged as malware. And of course, when you're on VirusTotal, you get this lovely page, which just blatantly makes me look like a complete asshole. But of course, checking any of the files that it actually downloads, you get 0 detections. Now, the reason for this is because I use certutil. I'm technically abusing it because you're not supposed to just download files with it, and that's why it's being picked up as straight up malware. I can tell you for a fact that it's completely open source, and it's easy to check exactly what it's downloading, it's exactly what's in the files, everything, and you can very, very clearly see that it is not malware. Currently, I'm trying to figure out a way to try and port this code to something else. Something that doesn't require iExpress or even certutil, like I don't know, C# or something. But for that, I would need to just compress it in like 7-zip or something like that, and then it downloads that and unzips them, so I need the SDK as well, and it's just, I need to figure out how to work all of this, because currently some people likely don't trust the launcher updater because Windows Defender is straight up saying that it's a Trojan and it's a severe threat, despite the fact that it is not. Now, any legitimate program should not require you to whitelist your temp folder and the file itself in your antivirus. But obviously, for some reason you do. And this happens on modern versions of Windows only, because I thought it was totally fine because I didn't get a single detection on Windows Defender on my laptop. But then as soon as Richard tries it on a more modern version of Windows 10, it flags it immediately. I honestly don't understand any of this. So currently I'm going to be trying, emphasis on the word trying, to make a 2.0 version of this in something like C#. Of course, I don't understand C#, so I'm going to have to actually ask for help with that. But currently, I'm trying to make a version of the updater without this quote-unquote malware code, despite the fact that there are 0 malware code inside. It's simply because it's a .exe using certutil. But it's fine if it's a bash script using certutil, but it's not if a .exe is using certutil, which is fucking stupid. But you could argue, but Pika, why don't you just use HTTP downloader? Put that in the .exe instead. It still gets like 7 detections for some reason, because apparently every single time I scan wextract.exe, which is the file that, you know, the self-extracting zip file, it still gets like 7 detections for some reason. Now, another thought that I had was maybe just having the auto updater inside of the launcher itself, rather than requiring to download an entirely different file, just have it in the launcher itself. It's so fucking confusing. I hate fucking antiviruses so much. So yeah, that's just something I want to point out. So in other words, if people are worried that I'm trying to infect them for some reason, I'm not. I promise. I absolutely promise that I am not trying to infect your computers. But I understand that you may not want to whitelist my launcher updater and your temp folder, because you require both of them to be whitelisted. Okay, so the second thing, I can't fucking speak. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is that I finally updated the Pikakid98 launcher updater. Now yes, I know what some people are gonna say, oh for fuck's sake, not the bloody launcher again. I know I've spoken about the launcher way too many fucking times, but the reason for this update was because, as you may have seen before, from this video in particular, the launcher updater was outright being flagged as malware by Windows Defender itself. So this version of the launcher shouldn't be picked up by your antivirus, unless of course you use a really terrible antivirus. If for some reason you still use something like Norton or McAfee, then there's a high chance that maybe it will be detected as malware. Although fucking Norton and McAfee are terrible, so please stop using Norton and McAfee and actually use a good antivirus. But I've completely rewritten it. It's not just a slight update, I've completely thrown out the old code and rewritten it right from scratch. Now it's written in Visual Basic. Correction, the downloader part is written in Visual Basic. The main part that still checks for the latest versions and all that. And only the parts that actually download things are written in Visual Basic. But again, the main part is still a batch script. So essentially what I'm saying is, if for some reason you did not trust the launcher update before because you thought, oh, 20 detections, it must be malware, you'll be safe now.
Hey there, you like trash? Hey again, you like trash? Well, if you come on down to Pikakid98's trash repository, I can get you the trash that you want. For some reason, if you want that, today's trash offer is the Pikakid98 Launcher Special Edition. It's a special edition of my launcher that for some reason I decided to make. When I say special, I mean there's some pretty interesting stuff in here. You get it all for the low price of $0, £0, 0 rubles, 0 rupees, whatever fucking currency you have, it's completely fucking free. Download it at GitHub right now, links in the description. Buy it for the low price of 0 of everything, and you get it for free.
Because I don't fucking know. What the fuck am I even talking about at this point? I don't even know.
The Pikakid98 Launcher Special Edition limited time offer. Call the number 0800, go fuck yourself. Get yourself your free subscription to the Pikakid98 Launcher Special Edition. Go and get it right now. Disclaimer, this phone number is not a real phone number. Please don't actually call this phone number. It's not a real phone number. Also, don't even try.
Okay, so the next one is about the Pikakid98 launcher. Yes, I know I'm speaking about the Pikakid98 launcher again. I know people are pretty fucking sick of it at this point. So a while ago, I made a video explaining my future plans for the Pikakid98 launcher. And I explained a bunch of things that I would do, like adding like dev builds or stuff like that. I tried, okay? I tried. So at the moment, the Pikakid98 launcher has a dev build. Fuck attempting to do nightly builds, because that's just gonna drain the fucking life out of me. So right now what I'm working on is a portable version of the launcher. Now what do I mean by portable builds? Well, what I mean by portable is that it all runs in the same folder. For the longest time, when you downloaded something from the Pikakid98 launcher, it would make a folder in your documents folder called Pikakid98 launcher. So basically what you have to do is you have to make a portable.txt file next to the launcher executable. In other words, whenever it loads, it detects, hey, there's a portable.txt here. And also on top of that is that I am now actually working on that the box art thing, but it's all like templates because, you know, this is the dev build. Maybe by the time this video comes out there might be a stable build, I don't know. But currently I am still working on the launcher, just at a much slower pace because I don't know, burnout. Hopefully I don't abandon this before it gets to 1.0. That would be fucking depressing if I fucking abandoned yet another project before it was completed. Fucking hope I don't. Yo, what's up, it's Pikakid98 here. Today I'm going to be talking about 3 things. Yes, I know, another vlog or another vlog collection. Yes, I know, cut me some fucking slack, alright? Anyway, move on. Okay, so the first one is something I know people are sick of talking about. I fucking know people are sick of me talking about. Nobody gives a shit about it. I'm aware. But here is a part 2 to my Pikakid98 launcher plans. So a while ago I did another video where I did another compilation of a bunch of vlogs, and I also stated in that video that I had certain plans for my launcher. I have more, and I actually have a list right here. You can see my laptop in frame. Now some of these I may have mentioned in my last video, but the first one is a module downloader for 7-zip GM8X Fix and Silent CMD. So what that means is, instead of these tools being just in the .exe file, instead they're going to be downloaded separately. Of course, you can't disable 7-zip. In my mind, in this tool, 7-zip will be completely undisableable because, you know, like, at least with GM8X Fix, yeah, it could be optional, and Silent CMD, yeah, that's also optional because antiviruses may trigger it. But yeah, 7-zip, if you did not have 7-zip in my launcher, you would not be able to use the launcher whatsoever. Make a config menu to change settings and disable installation of GM8X Fix and Silent CMD. So in other words, when you launch the launcher for the first time, or when you've launched the launcher for that particular version, like, you know, for the first time of that version, because it'll show up even if you have used the launcher before and it's just updated, you'll get a menu that tells you, hey, do you want to change a bunch of settings? And then of course, if you want to change them later on, you don't have to go through the effort of deleting the first time initialization file, you just click a settings button. Okay, so the third one is to add logos coming down like the box arts. Add information about the repository on the launcher, so basically just a big like transparent box that tells you, hey, blah blah, this is when it was released, this is when this is when that, here's some information about it, all that. Version tracker batch script plus install batch script. Add everything from GameJolt and itch.io. Okay, so this is actually related to the thing that I'm actually going to talk about in the next section, so I'm going to save that until then. Add links to GameJolt and itch.io from the drop down. So in other words, if a game or whatever is already on GameJolt or itch.io on the drop down. Okay, window hider. Hide the window when a repo is launched. So essentially what this means is that when you launch a program, or when you launch one of my games, or when you launch Danion's like stuff from my launcher, the launcher will temporarily minimize, or rather not minimize, it'll hide it, so it'll be completely gone. When the program or whatever you've just opened closes, then the launcher opens back up. And offline mode, which is basically related to the install batch script. This is going to be extremely tedious, and I don't know why I'm adding all this, but it's like, these are things that I think I can do. I'm trying not to go too impossible. I mean, some of these things may be deleted when it's like too impossible for me to do. Yo, what's up, Pikakid98 here, and today I'm going to be talking about Pikakid98 launcher engine changes. Now I'm aware, people at this point are very fucking sick of me talking about this launcher. Now you might be asking, what do I mean engine change if it's a launcher? Well, for the longest time, my launcher has been coded with GameMaker 8.1, which as a lot of you may know is very outdated at this point. Now a while ago I actually did try to port this to GameMaker Studio. Unfortunately, that didn't work out very well because most of the stuff was just completely, and I mean completely broken. For example, the window hiding thing was just completely broken, and so many functions like the triggers were just completely broken. You might be thinking, wait a minute, then what did you port it to? What I ported it to was something called GameMaker 8.2. Now for those who don't know what GameMaker 8.2 is, this is a community-made mod of GameMaker 8.1. I've used the GM82 core extensions for a while, and a few other GM82 extensions, but this is actually a full-on integrated development environment, or IDE for short, that is actually essentially a reverse engineering of GameMaker 8.1 to actually include all of this stuff, all of these new features, and it's still being updated. Of course, I can't actually link you a direct link to it. I can link you the Discord. So essentially they made this new GM82 format, which kind of looks like the project files. Instead of just being one file, it's like a bunch of folders like for the sprites and the music and everything like that. It still keeps GameMaker 8.1 as GameMaker 8.1 rather than making it, well, it makes it a bit more studio-like, but without the limitations and sacrifices you have to make just to port your game to GameMaker Studio. Oh, and also the fact that I don't need to patch it every single time I export the game. I don't need to do that. It's already pre-patched with GM8X Fix. So that's just an update for those very few people, or 0 of you, who are curious about why the launcher is taking so long to get into a stable state. because I've wanted to release the 0.7 version for a long fucking time, like a few months at this point, and I just haven't, but that's because I'm experimenting with moving the engine. And I'm also experimenting with moving PL Updater as just an actual like required tool. Like when you launch the launcher without PL Updater, it tells you, hey, don't launch it this way, launch it through PL Updater. Because for the longest time, PL Updater was a completely optional tool. And what I'm essentially doing is I'm taking the intro portion from the dev build. It's not in the stable build, but it is in the dev build. And it's like, oh, do you want to download this utility? Do you want to download this utility? I'm moving that all to PL Updater, which is just going to be the actual thing that you launch instead of being completely optional. Now it'll actually be required. Problem is I have to figure out how everything works because I constantly keep getting errors. And also the problem that my scripts keep getting flagged as Trojan BBS droppers. Because I can't have a fucking single tool that doesn't get constantly flagged. Windows Defender is probably one of the fucking worst antiviruses these days. Like, I trusted Windows Defender for the longest time because it was like, oh, it's a good antivirus, it's built into Windows, it's really good. And then these days, I open something and then it's just like, no, sorry, malware detected. So yeah, that's why the launcher is taking so long to get into a stable state. It's because I'm still working on it, very, very slowly. I'm losing a lot of patience with this fucking launcher. A lot of fucking patience. So I do work on it on and off every now and then. Okay, so the first one is no launcher updates in 2023. Now I know it's been a long time since they've updated the Pikakid98 launcher. It was actually October or November. I think it was October last year. So you might be thinking, what's the reason for that? Did I give up on the launcher? Did I realize it was an impossible task? No. As a matter of fact, what's going on is that behind the scenes I'm experimenting with some new things. For example, thinking moving the updater to like having it as a required module instead of an optional thing, which I believe I've spoken about before. But the problem is that, yeah, sure, it's not as difficult. Like I could just rush out an update. Like it's not hard to just make the update. Like I could easily just make the update, just update the updater, maybe release an update where it doesn't actually automatically check for updates and only works when you launch it the first time. I could do that, yes, but I also want to do some other things, like for example a process checker kind of thing. For example, when the updater is going to like run in the background and constantly check for the launcher's updates. Essentially, when you launch a game or a application or whatever, it'll essentially be like a small, maybe auto hotkey process that'll run instead. So instead it'll close the launcher, like it'll actually close the launcher, then reopen it once it's done, and then say like the launcher gets updated in the background, you would then be able to play the games and still get the latest version of the launcher. So next time you reopen the launcher, you'll notice, oh, it's actually been updated. But I also want a thing where the game itself can auto update, maybe like it updates in the background and then it like tells you, oh, like it doesn't like pop up on your face, but maybe like a thing on the taskbar that just starts flashing, and it's like you click it and it's like, hey, this game that you're playing right now has an update available. So it's like if you're encountering bugs, restart it. Now of course that's going to be incredibly difficult for me because I absolutely suck at programming, and also the problem with auto hotkey. Auto hotkey is good. It's a good, legitimate like programming language. The only problem is that auto hotkey frequently gets flagged as malware, especially programs compiled with AHK2EXE. Pretty much every single script2EXE program always has the outputted files flagged as malicious because, oh, it executes a script. Oh, it executes a script. You mean like fucking every single program? And I might make a rant about this. In fact, I know for a fact I'll make a rant. You know what? After this video, I will make a rant on it. But yeah, so it's not dead. It's just on a pretty big hiatus. I'm aware, like, I'll try my best to at least try to get an update out, although it won't be the stable version. Like, I want to get 7.0 out as a stable product. I don't want it to be, I release it and I just rush it out. Oh yeah, it's stable, and then you look at it and it's like, oh, there was a coding error right here. Well, clearly it's not stable. I have so many plans for that launcher, and it seems like it's being delayed just because, like, if I did decide to port PL Updater to Game Maker 8.2, this would have been so much easier.